It's podcadzo.
Sorry, I was fucking hungry. I had to do it. I'm not screaming.
That's way less worse than when Julian.
Welcome back to podcadzo.
How could it possibly be?
Podcadzo.
You fucking jabroni ass. Do you want a microphone? Well, that's too late. It's too late. You can't have a microphone. Fuck you.
We're rolling already.
Oh.
There's no stopping this train.
That one up there's rolling too?
Everything's rolling.
Everything's rolling? Well, I say we hydrate. Cheers. Oh, my fucking phone.
Paper towel. No, I'm not demanding you do paper towel.
I am. Go get the fucking paper towels.
I've got some in there.
Oh, nice.
What a major party towel.
Honestly, I'm glad that.
What a
glad that
disastrous
just
way to
happened.
start the pod.
I'm glad that happened just now. Okay.
Man, I feel like we have so much more space with this
Yeah, the
table.
table's nice,
and I don't
right?
have my computer here and all the shit. This is nice.
Thank you, Dad.
This is nice. This is turning into a real podcast studio. Thank you. Oh, you have headphones on? Thank you. You don't have a mic, though.
God,
so
you
have
can
to
really
yell.
smell the cores. You can really smell the banquet all over everything.
I got drippies. Can I get that?
Yeah, you can fucking get it. Jesus Christ.
Hurry up.
After I'm done cleaning up your mess. If it gets sticky, nice. Just in case it gets sticky. We got some sanitary wipes.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, there we go.
What are we talking about today on Podcadzo?
I thought you were gonna put something together.
You did make notes, which is really nice. I was
Yeah.
going to freeball this
You're
one
fucking
because I have...
I've made
I'm
notes.
so well-versed in...
I have to make the notes because I get scared.
Yeah. No, it's really good.
But
and
really,
you
the
always...
notes,
I need to start doing notes to the detail you do them in.
we
because
never
you
stick
always,
to the notes anyway.
Well, it's good because it kind of primes you for the episode, putting down your
Get you
thoughts.
thinking early, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't think we've said what we're talking about yet.
We're talking about. I tried to think of something funny. I couldn't. I was gonna say like fellatio. We're talking about fellatio today. Pros and cons. Anyway, no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about. Well, I thought we were talking about one thing, but then you said today we're talking about pretty much the same thing, but
a subset
slightly
of
more.
the thing.
Yeah, slightly more specific. So I thought we were talking about just 2000s indie rock. You said today we're talking about 2000s New York indie rock.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And all you wanted to talk about in addition was the National, which I said is 2000s New York indie rock.
Well,
so
that's not necessarily all.
what if we
the
expanded to
extra-
the tri-state area?
Well, what about like what about like Arcade Fire? Because they're from
Yeah,
Canada.
no.
And then you got
they
like
can-
who else? Put some other Arctic Monkeys. They're like what, British?
They're British, yeah.
Yeah.
But they
so-
just wanted to be one of the Strokes.
And Wikipedia said that indie rock also has credits starting in New Zealand.
Flight of the Conchords?
I mean, maybe.
Who else is from New Zealand?
Maybe they're just so indie that we don't know who they are.
Uh,
Yeah, because they're like small.
that's cool.
Yeah, it's cool to be like
Just
undiscovered.
the first band that just no one knew about was started indie rock. First band that people despised.
All right. Well, basically, I've presented you a pretty broad palette.
Well,
so
how
now
about-
it's up to you to.
I say we focus the conversation on New York, but whenever it makes sense to go on a tangent to one of those other bands
Okay.
that are from Canada or the UK or elsewhere in the
Ohio.
US. Ohio. New York
Where
by
else?
way of Ohio.
Well, Death Cab is from like Seattle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they're 90s.
They're like 1999. They peaked in the 2000s.
Yeah, they did. I think they started earlier 90s, didn't they? There's like some Death Cab stuff through the late 90s.
Transatlanticism is well, maybe that one's 2003.
Yeah, I think transatlanticism is in
The other, I think their first one's 98 or 99. To be honest, let's just Google it.
yeah. Getting derailed real early.
Got the internet right in front of us here. Let's see. Def Cab looks like they're active from 1997 to now.
97.
So, yeah, I mean, they're arguably
All right,
peaking
let's
in the
start
2000s.
with the Strokes,
Okay.
and we'll go from there.
Put yourself in your, teenage shoes, your teenage years and your teenage angst. Preteen even. Wow. Okay. And you get into this genre as a whole, but then also specifically like the Strokes.
Yeah.
And this, I guess, is another one of those explain to Julian why it's good sessions, because I don't really fuck
like
with the Strokes.
Which is surprising.
Yeah. I just think they're super basic.
That's part of their appeal. Anyways.
Fuck that. Fuck. If your appeal is being basic, then of course I'm going to hate you.
Fair point.
Colin.
Point Julian. All right. It's an uphill battle here.
All right.
All right, let me start with how... So I first heard the Strokes in 2011 when the album Angles came out. Because I was just, at the age where I guess I would have been 13 then. So I was paying attention to... I don't know, what am I saying? 2011. I was like 15. So I was at the age where I was starting to pay attention to record releases, and it's like, oh, the Strokes, I think they're like a big band. I'll listen to the album. And I really liked that album. And then, like a lot of things do, that corresponded with me playing guitar. And so I went back and really dug into their previous discography. And
I gotta say,
got into them.
Considering that the guitar is probably my favorite part of the Strokes, I do not know their guitar player. What is that?
There's
this guy?
two of them. It's no, that's the bass player.
Okay.
It's Albert Hammond Jr. and Nick Valenci.
Oh, they have two.
So
guitar
Albert
players?
Hammond Jr. is the rhythm guitar player, and Nick Valenci is the lead.
Oh, man.
Generally, they kind of swap leads sometimes. But.
Okay.
Yeah, so the band consists of those two I just named, Nikolai for sure, who's the bass player, Fabrizio Moretti, who's the drummer, and Julian Casablancas, who's the singer. So
The front douche.
you don't like Casablancas?
No.
No. Well, anyway, so they have it.
I'm being real stingy with this one.
I might just stop trying.
You should.
Therefore, I mean, I don't need you to like the Strokes. I don't give a shit. I'm just going to talk about why I like them. So they ended up getting a lot of flack for this because they all come from like wealthier families. Julian Casablancas' father was like a fashion mogul. Albert Hammond Jr.'s father, Albert Hammond Sr., was a pretty successful singer-songwriter guy out in California. Fabrizio and Nikolai and maybe Nick too, I think all came from money. Anyways, no, maybe not. I think it was just Julian Casablancas and Albert Hammond Jr. and they met at some weird school in Switzerland. They were like exchange students there, and they met and then came back to Julian. One of the other Strokes was there. I'm fucking this up so bad, but anyways, they met there, came back to New York, started playing together. Albert Hammond Jr. wasn't in the band at first, but then they kind of added him in. They started playing shows, got a ton of buzz around them. There was this awesome scene exploding in New York with other bands like the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and LCD Sound System, Interpol, and there were some bands before them like Jonathan Fire Eater that kind of kicked off the scene. But anyway, Strokes kind of caught the wave, and they became the best known band of this like indie rock movement, kind of the poster children for it. And they released a really seminal album in 2001 called Is This It? That has a ton of classic songs on it. Last Night, Someday, others. Hard to explain. It's my favorite Strokes album. They followed up with an album, Room on Fire, which I think critically was kind of a disappointment. But I think it's a great album, and it is hit after hit. It has
Nigel Godrich.
yeah, it has their biggest song, their biggest single, Reptilia, on it. And then after that, 2005, First Impressions of Earth, which has Juicebox, and I think the other one is 1251 on this one. Is that on the Wikipedia?
Juicebox is the only one.
Oh,
that
you
we're
you only
talking
live
about.
once is maybe the other single I'm thinking of. Anyways, from 2001 to 2005, they were huge. They experienced all sorts of problems. Albert Hammond Jr. had a heroin problem. They're all drinking, partying too much, I think, and think they had some issues between that album and the release of Angles, which came out in 2001 and was the album I mentioned, being the first one I listened to. And then after Come Down Machine was the next one, another album I loved that was important to me in my childhood, and that was cool because it was one of the first times there was a band I was obsessed with, and it was kind of like an older band, but they were still releasing music, and I was able to, get an album as it came out and listen to it and form my own opinion. And then in 2019, they did an album with Rick Rubin called The New Abnormal, and it was, I think, a very well done album because it was kind of a departure from their sound, but it was still very much the Strokes, and some cool production stuff on there and good songwriting. So I think that's a good album. There's not really a Strokes album I don't like, to be honest. I'm a fan of their whole discography.
What's Rick Rubin's kind of influence on that? I never listened to that album, but I was always curious. It seemed like, I mean, it makes sense the Strokes work with Rick Rubin, but at the same time, it's kind of like a little bit weird.
I think he didn't try to put his own flavor on it that much. I think he really wanted them to do their thing, and maybe just like encouraged a little more creativity and, like I said, like departure from the traditional sound. So there's new drum sounds they haven't used before, more of a synth influence on a lot of the songs.
For sure.
Just kind of like spacier vibes on some things, not so basic rock and roll, but that's still very much what it's rooted in.
All right, so you've gone and said essentially the Strokes kind of at this point in time are like the poster children of indie rock. We never really went back and said what indie rock is, which I think before we move on, it would be interesting to touch on what that term means, because a lot of people, myself included, have at one point thought it's like a genre or it refers to like a type of music, but the formation of indie rock and like the label indie rock really just came from bands of various different genres and musical styles who were all just doing things DIY,
Keep
like
talking 1 sec.
free from labels and kind of just trying to like create on their own and not necessarily be part of like the music industry. And that's really what indie rock as a term refers to. So that's, I think, why there's so many different bands that sound super different and are like musically super all over the place, but they all fall under like the umbrella of indie rock. So I think that's why, today I feel like we would be talking about probably a decent chunk of different sounding bands that are kind of all over the place, but yet they're all indie rock, and that's really just because these are all artists who started free from a label, and the idea was to be in a DIY scene, and that's really what was like hyped and what people really enjoyed about this type of music was the fact that it was like from a DIY scene. So
yes, but then also something happened where indie became a sound too, because a lot of the most notorious indie rock bands never really did the DIY thing. Like, I think a great example are the Smiths of being like one of the number one like proto indie bands, but they signed to a major label, somewhat major. I think RCA.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
I think it was RCA.
Yeah, they signed like right away. They didn't really say anything themselves. And then, I think in maybe 80s, 90s is when it was like usurped from being a movement, a lifestyle of like DIY to like a sound and a scene. But then at the same time, in the 90s, you have, I think, like a new wave of like 90s indie rock with bands like Pavement and Guided by Voices and John blanks on.
You have you have kind of like the Seattle rock scene, which is mostly DIY, like, or at least a lot of the bands start
Pixies,
DIY.
Sonic Youth.
Yeah. Death Cab starts out very DIY. And as well as like the Postal Service, which is 2000. But
Yeah. So it's kind of a slippery term. Definitely slippery by the time we hit 2001 and there's a scene exploding. And indie is just kind of a convenient term for what's going on there because it's there is like a spirit of do it yourself and independence and stuff, but the Strokes and Yeah Yeahs and all of them got snatched up by major labels right away.
Sure, and I think the sound qualities and like the musical elements that wind up forming like the genre of indie rock that comes later on refines in like the mid to late 2000s, but in the first few years you really do see a lot of pretty all over the place stuff. You see like pretty sad, like more singer-songwriter based indie music. You see some like analog synth based indie music. You see some like rock, more traditional rock indie. You see some grunge inspired indie. It's kind of it really is like a pretty wide span of like musical ideas, and I think that's why indie's so interesting and why a lot of people will say that indie is like their favorite, because it really is like there's so many types of subgenres that fall into indie.
I think now if it's like not mainstream rock, like very obviously pop rock, and it's not like heavy enough to be traditional alternative rock, it falls under indie category.
Rock, yeah.
That's what I do. Like,
so let's talk about this band that I think we both have really good opinions of this band, but Interpol.
Yes.
They also start to come into the scene around this time, and they kind of fit slightly into. They're pretty different from the Strokes, but they fit slightly in with that universe, just in the sense that they're like more of a traditional rock band. They don't necessarily start out being very like production inspired and like studio band influenced. Like they really are just like a pretty raw, bare bones like rock band.
The sound of Turn On the
first.
Bright Lights is
it's
amazing.
huge, yeah, for sure. It's definitely like very big, but it's I think in their earlier years it's a lot more kind of like a simple goal than kind of what they're trying to do now.
And this is why I love Interpol, is because they were just like doing a post-punk thing. Like everyone always drew Joy Division comparisons, which is fair.
It's fair, yeah. I mean, like Paul Banks, the front man, he sings a lot like, I think he sings a lot like that dude.
Ian Curtis, yeah.
And Sam, I can never remember how to pronounce his last name, but Fogerino, I don't know if that's right. But he is one of my favorite drummers as well, because I think he takes like he plays like relatively simple and straightforward, very groovy parts, but he always adds like a very unique spin to his playing where you can kind of tell that it's always, Sam playing the drums.
And the fourth member, other guy we haven't mentioned yet, Carlos Dangler, who's the bass player, and like super interesting character and looked really cool on stage and had a great bass style that was like jive so well with the drums. And I think that's really like what the sound of Interpol is those two dudes early on.
Yeah, because the guitars really I mean, even though there is like a rhythm guitar, it's not necessarily like there's always chords happening. Really a lot of the time it's like a very single note oriented melody that kind of just wanders around, and bass really has to hold down like the key ideas of the chords and the chord changes and stuff like that. But Carlos D, he left Interpol in 2010, and I wish I knew the name of the guy that's touring with them right now. I think they've had like a couple bassists play with them since then, but the last time I saw them was last year when they were touring behind the other side of Make Believe, and their bass player that's on the road with them right now has some of the best fucking bass tone I've ever heard.
Sick.
And the bass tone on the album, Other Side of Make Believe, is incredible too. But like, man, yeah,
I'm bummed I
it
didn't
was
go to
so
that
good
show
live.
when it came through town.
Yeah, you should have. Next time. That was like, I mean, we both went to that show, and I think we were both like blown away by just like the professionalism of the set.
Yeah.
Like they went out and they did not fuck around for a single second.
I got this super sick. I actually stole it from my dad. Never gave it back. He had this cool special edition version of Turn on the Bright Lights on vinyl, and it included a DVD with a lot of their live performances from that tour. And I've watched that thing so many times. Their live shows back then were so cool and mesmerizing, and their set was just so tight. And I loved like their onstage presence and what they were doing
tight.
between songs, and like it was all so intentional. And yeah, Interpol's I think honestly Interpol, other than Vampire Weekend, maybe would be my favorite band from the whole 2000s New York indie rock thing if I had to pick one.
They're definitely up there for me. They're very, very good, and they've continued to progress over the years too. Where I think some bands that started out in the indie rock scene kind of really stayed in one lane and tried to like refine and perfect that thing that broke them into the scene. And some indie bands kind of abandoned like their original identities and sounds and have been pursuing kind of different versions of what indie rock can be. And I think Interpol is one of those latter bands where they really, every album is like kind of a concept. It's kind of like a different take on what their overall like character Interpol sound is. I think El Pintor is amazing. I think Marauder is amazing.
Marauder's great.
And A Fine Mess, which is like the little EP that comes afterwards, is amazing. And The Other Side of Make Believe is also a great record, and all those are their most recent records. So it's like how many bands that started in the late 90s or early 2000s are really truly peaking now, besides like, you know, Interpol, the National, which
peaking.
we'll talk about and stuff like that. But
Did you ever hear Paul Banks and RZA's side project called Banks and Steels?
I think I heard about it, but I don't remember listening to it.
I haven't heard it in a while, but I remember the single from that album they did being awesome. I listened to it a lot this summer. It came out. I think it was like 2016.
So then
2015 maybe.
I guess we have kind of now the two, what I would say are like biggest early 2000s indie bands on the scene.
I think, yeah.
Or I guess,
Deserve.
yeah.
I think it's a trinity
Probably.
of those three.
The Yeah are my probably least knowledgeable band out of all those three.
I'm pretty fresh on this stuff because I somewhat recently read this great book called Meet Me in the Bathroom, which is like a chronicle of all
We'll
of...
meet you in the bathroom.
That's what she said. That's the lyric. Yeah, great chronicle of like the whole... I think it spans from 1999 to like 2013 or something like that, and follows all the bands, important movements in the time. And it's great because you realize how much awesome shit there was in that time that you forget about, like the Walkman. You ever listen to the Walkman?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that
Walkmen
song,
are
The
pretty cool.
Rat. That song's crazy. And actually, Showtime, I think, is doing like a documentary based on the book, which I'm excited to watch. But anyways, that book contained a lot about the Yeah, and it gave me a lot of insights, and I think therefore respect for what the Yeah did. I never really appreciated them before. That being said, I can get pretty sick of their shtick pretty quickly. like the
Definitely.
Carano vocal style and everything they're doing. Not hating and just saying.
So yeah, talking about indie bands that kind of stay in their lane and do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah,
That's kind of my impression of
exactly.
the yeahs. But again, not hating. That is a pretty ignorant opinion of mine because I haven't spent too much time listening to it. So
And then what year was the first LCD Sound System album?
So the first LCD, I want to say it was 2002. Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and pull this up. So yeah, I was gonna say we've got our first couple like pretty big indie rock bands of the early 2000s or late 90s, early 2000s, and people are really infatuated with Interpol because I think of that post-punk vibe that it has, where it's pretty loose and it just is raucous, and it's not necessarily like clean, tight studio, but it's like still obviously good performance. And then in 2002, I think it's worth mentioning LCD at this point because they really break onto the scene in a big way in New York, and they really are like the definition of a DIY band because you have James Murphy, the frontman, who really starts LCD Sound System in his garage by himself with just the gear that he has.
Yeah, and
And-
he's responsible for so much before that with the record label he founded. James Murphy's like probably the most central character to all of this, if there would have to be one.
Definitely. So yeah, DFA is worth mentioning
Mhm.
because that is the label that he creates. I want to say, when does he start DFA? Like all the way back in...
Yeah, click on his Wikipedia. I
Let's
want to say
see.
it was late 90s.
Yeah, it was like 98 or 97.
Oh, no, founded 2001. Okay.
So yeah, it was founded right around the time that the debut LCD Sound System record comes out. But I think what's notable about the first LCD Sound System record in particular is that it's really just James Murphy by himself.
Yeah.
He does pretty much the whole record by himself, and then he puts it out on DFA, which is his own label. And it is almost immediately picked up by critics as like a pretty good, solid album.
Yeah.
But it's also very, I would say, different from what's kind of trending in the mainstream of indie rock at this point, where you have a lot of like guitar-based bands, and then LCD breaks into the scene, and they're like analog synths and drum machines, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, just a guy kind of rambling over.
Yeah, there's not too much like verse, chorus, like bridge, outro type songs. It's like, here's an idea, and I'm going to riff on it for, 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll see where it goes.
And he's a cool character because I think the way he's described is kind of like a older, disgruntled sound engineer who I think he had been in groups before and was kind of jaded and sick of failure and stuff. And he was doing, I think he worked at venues in New York, and then he started the record label. And then, out of frustration or just wanting to hear something better than what was coming out, he started making songs in his studio.
Just by himself.
And it's a cool story. But yeah, I think he had kind of a thing for being grumpy.
I think
he'd be difficult to deal with sometimes.
the way that he's always self-described is being like just introverted.
A real grump.
I really don't think he likes being in like large groups, being out and about, or like socializing. And
Have you
that's hard to
seen-
do when you're the front man of a group.
Have you seen Shut Up and Play the Hits?
I have.
Yeah.
It's really fucking good. And God, I mean, I was kind of mad at them when they...
I wish they stopped there.
I
I'm
was
not a
kinda
big
mad
fan
at them
of
when
his-
they
his newer
decided
albums.
You don't like American Dream?
I have it. I listen to it somewhat regularly, but I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, it's fair. There's
Yeah.
definitely like... There's a very special like energy and kind of like manic anxiety to like the first couple LCD records that I think just kind of... They're still anxious, but they're more like melodramatic anxious now. Just melancholy as opposed to like...
I think it's just tainted for me.
I felt like I had done cocaine after listening to like the first LCD record. I was just like, oh my God, like let's fucking go.
LCD System is playing at my house, or Daft Punk. Anyways,
So yeah, I guess unless you have other stuff really to say about LCD,
no,
they're just
we got other
definitely
stuff
worth
to move through.
mentioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was thinking at this point, what could be cool to mention, because they also break into the scene at around exactly the same time. These guys, which I wanted to talk about before I knew that it was supposed to be New York indie, but Death Cab from Bellingham, yeah. They are definitely one of the biggest indie rock bands of the 2000s.
Indeed.
And they start out.
They probably are the band that had the most songs in Grey's Anatomy too.
That's probably true.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, so I guess really what I want to talk about mostly here is Transatlanticism, because that's the album that I think breaks them into the scene the hardest. Their debut definitely gets critical attention and people like it.
It
There's
was
songs
really
on the radio.
2003.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Transatlanticism comes out. There's a bunch of songs on it that are big radio songs. The Sound of Settling, Tidal Land Registration. What's the third one? There's a third one on that I thought was pretty big on the radio. I can't remember. But either way, so Jason McGurr, who is the current drummer of Death Cab, joins Death Cab at this time. He's another one of my favorite drummers of all time, so I just wanted to mention that he breaks into Death Cab's universe like pretty much right when they're peaking.
Why is
in
he
their
one of your
fame level.
favorite?
He's
drummers?
just he plays like super original parts all
Yeah.
the time. Like all of his drumming is very thought out and very tactical. He's like a technique. Like his technique is amazing. I follow him on Instagram and he's always posting like warm up videos or just like rudiment videos, and yeah, he's very loose in his hands and he's just got very, very good technique. But yeah, he just writes really cool drum parts, and I think not to like speak too much to it, but I think he's kind of the reason why Transatlanticism like soars so much harder and just like feels so much better than their first one. And I think Jason McGurr is really to thank for that. So
I was listening to a cool like deluxe version of Transatlanticism, and it has a bunch of the demos on it where I think it was just Ben Gibbard playing to a drum machine, and you do realize how much is added by live drums. Yeah. So yeah, I agree. He has a great feel.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that's never stood out too much to me in Death Cab, but yeah.
What song is it? There's a song on their EP called the Blue EP. Kids in 99. You need to listen to the drums on Kids in 99.
Okay.
They're so good. But yeah, so Death Cab breaks in around this time too, and they maintain, I guess, somewhat celebrity status all the way up till now. Like they have some hits and misses. I wouldn't say their discography is like solid all the way through necessarily, but for the most part it's pretty good, and they definitely like still tour frequently, write songs, put out albums, and they're active as fuck. So
I think Ben Gibbard has to have one of the coolest voices ever and most recognizable.
Yeah, and his the way he dictates his words, like the way he says his words is so interesting. And
there's such a nice shape.
He enunciates so well. Probably he enunciates the best of like most any singer.
Dude, his enunciation is off the
Crystal
charts,
clear.
dude. Yeah.
All right, so then after Death Cab, I mean, there's like what? We got Spoon. We kind of have Arctic Monkeys
later,
but
Arctic Monkeys 2004.
Yeah.
And Arctic Monkeys, let's touch on Arctic Monkeys. Arctic Monkeys is one of my favorite bands of all time.
Sure.
And especially early Arctic Monkeys. And, you know, it's a well-documented thing, and Alex Turner talks about it a lot, that how much they were obsessed with the Strokes and really want to be the Strokes. That being said, they could not sound less like the Strokes.
Yeah, they really don't sound like the Strokes at all.
Their first album is so British and so kind of like not even British but like Cockney British, and so aggressive and in your face and fast, and almost like a lot of it is almost hip hop rapping-esque kind of when you look back at it, and it's very wordy, lyrical,
Yeah.
and
Tongue-in-cheek lyrics a lot.
yeah, tongue-in-cheek, a lot of references and very witty.
Yeah, very pop culture-y in the references, I feel like. And also, yeah, just super quick, you know.
So the band that ended up getting the British Strokes title, I think, were the Libertines. And were you ever a Libertines guy? Nah. You ever listen to them?
No, I never really did.
Okay. You should give Up the Bracket a chance. And their self-titled album. They are they're cool albums. It's cool songwriting. Mick Jones from The Clash produced Up the Bracket, I think. And it has a great sound, and I think he had a great influence on the band. But it's very like swanky and swarthy and also very British. But I think they kind of got the British Strokes thing because they were very fashionable and they were all addicted to drugs and real characters.
Hell yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to drugs.
You are, dude. I need to talk to you about that.
I like them.
Yeah,
They're fun.
They're great. Yeah, so anyways, that was my quick tangent on Arctic Monkeys.
Hell yeah. Well, okay, my contribution here is that I really, really loved Arctic Monkeys as a kid. What's the name of their debut? Is it just Arctic Monkeys?
No, whatever
Or-
people say I am, that's what I'm not. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this album's great, and Favorite Worst Nightmare is great. And when I was
I think
learning how to
Favorite
play
Worst Nightmare
drums,
is my favorite.
it's probably my favorite too. When I was a kid, really dialing in my speed drumming,
Mm-hmm.
this album did a lot of good for me because it's so fucking fast. The song Brian
Yeah.
was so hard to play on
Brian.
drums. And yeah, it has a Brit pop feel to it in some
does,
ways.
it does,
That
yeah.
album, like there's
Mhm.
some Franz Ferdinand kind of on it,
Yeah. Oh, Franz Ferdinand.
which
Fuck.
man, they have like 2.5 albums that are worth talking about.
Franz Ferdinand?
Yeah.
Obviously their debut. And then
The
Their second
debut
album.
and what's the name? It Can Get So Much Better or whatever. And then that's pretty much it. Their third album is like half good.
true.
And then
Is that the one with Oh, you girls will never know. Oh, you girls
That's
will
the
never know.
second
Is that the
one.
second album?
yeah.
Okay.
The third one is the one. There, let's just pull it up. Their third album is the one that's like a weird
to the third album.
departure album.
But their first album was big for me.
Yeah, their first
Especially
album.
Take Me Out.
Yeah,
It was big
Take
for a lot
Me
of
Out
people.
was huge
Because it was in NHL. Can you look up what year did it come out? What NHL game was Take Me Out in? The Wikipedia for it.
What NHL game?
Let's see. Worst Google ever did. You could have just clicked on it.
Fuck.
Wikipedia.
Well, okay.
Scroll up. Take Me Out. Right there. Below you. Bam. This is good podcasting.
Yeah. This just. Oh, it was recorded in Malmo.
Oh.
Interesting. That's where we recorded.
Yeah.
The Foreign
Was it the
Words
same
album.
studio?
No, it's not. That's interesting though. Gula Studio.
That's crazy.
All right. So
We're not. It was in an NHL game.
The point of this is not that. I think you're getting hung up on something that's irrelevant and stupid.
There's no point. We can make any point we want.
So anyway, yeah, Franz Ferdinand's cool, I guess. I wanted to find their third album so I could shit on it. Tonight is the one I'm thinking of that I don't
Sick
like that
name.
much. Ulysses, do you remember that song?
Oh, I do. Yes. Yeah, I don't like this album either. I got pissed at this album.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
that good. Oh, maybe Know You Girls is on
Yeah, Know You
here.
Girls. Okay, it is. This was
Okay.
a catchy song.
Know You Girls sounds the most like
Yeah.
their
Their
first
first.
two.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, and then Right Words, Right whatever that came out in 2012. They had like a
that's
new
a-
drummer for it or
Mhm.
something.
I forgot about that album. I like that album.
It's okay. It also sounds pretty much like they're trying to recreate their early sound, but they kind of fail. And then I don't really know any
Very
of these
critical
other
of
albums.
Of people, Julian. You should be
Yeah,
easier
I
on.
mean,
yeah.
they're just. It's like if you can tell me something that you genuinely remember about any of these albums that
I
don't
remember
feel
all
like
the
is
singles
fake?
very well.
Okay. I don't.
Right thoughts, right words.
Okay, maybe
right
maybe I do
Yeah.
remember that one. Yeah, I remember the album art for it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, they again, like Arctic Monkeys, I guess, start out kind of post-punky, Brit poppy, and then
I think Alex Capranos, the singer and guitar player, was in a metal band before Franz Ferdinand. He was kind of an older guy. I think he'd been trying to make it with a metal band for a long time. And then I think that band broke up, just kind of discouraged, and then started Franz Ferdinand. Yeah, because he was born in 1972, so he was well into his 30s
yeah, he
by
was
the
pretty
time.
old. That
Franz
explains
Ferdinand.
why he looks so old.
Yeah.
Cool. Good for him. Nice. Well,
I love when a singer or a band are into their adulthood and
and then they
reach
make
notoriety.
it later.
Yeah.
That is kind of it's
It's
nice.
great to
for us.
listen to art from people who like have life experience.
Some perspective.
Yeah.
It's nice for us to know too that, you know, so many people say if you're not famous by the time you're like 20
Yeah,
whatever, then you're fucking
chances are over.
done.
Yeah. A lot of the artists I respect the most made it late 20s, early 30s. Noel Gallagher is 27.
Yeah. Well,
He's probably the best songwriter ever.
I
Noel Gallagher.
think he was a poor example for you to use, but anyway.
Mm.
Okay, so that's a lot of bands
I'm
that we've
giving
touched
your
on.
music a chance, Julian. Why won't you give Oasis a chance?
Because they suck.
I thought I won you over a little bit when we had our Oasis ode.
I will think about trying.
Just
it
gotta
out.
listen to Definitely Maybe.
I added it to my library.
You did?
That's honestly a lot. If my dad, yeah, I think I'm gonna say this. If my dad knew that I had that album saved now,
He just likes him that
he
much.
would probably tell me to like throw in the towel with this whole podcasting thing. Probably our friendship. He'd be like, "You made it so far into your life.
I'm gonna fight your dad.
I thought I did so good and I failed."
I will fight your
You
dad.
can fight him.
Yeah.
I'll watch.
I'm gonna beat the shit out of your dad.
Honestly, I think a lot of people would watch that. Also,
I'm gonna beat your dad mercilessly.
Are you listening, Sam?
Sorry, I'm not. Mr. Farrar, I respect you. I'm so sorry.
All right. Well, now it's time, I think, to talk about the National.
I'd like to talk about
Unless you wanna
more
talk about
Franz Ferdinand. No, I'm joking. Let's talk about the National.
I think the National probably has the most.
I think they're the gayest.
There's the most to talk about with the National because I think they've perhaps done the most for indie music lately.
Yeah. They are interesting because not only were they somewhat later in life when they formed, but they were at it for a good 10 years before like they really
got famous.
Yeah, the mainstream really latched on. But then the mainstream latched onto them in a major way. And I think it was
They've been sucking the old titties ever since.
Yeah. It's crazy how relevant and cool the National have stayed since like 2010, 2011.
It's interesting how it's interesting how like cool and hip they've stayed considering their like presence and like demeanor indicates like the
It's
opposite
not
of
cool.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, fucking
They're
lame.
just like nerdy dads.
Yeah, dude. Speaking of dudes I'd beat mercilessly, Matt Burns.
Every
dude.
single person.
All
in
of
the
them, really.
National, yeah.
Yeah, the drummer would
Bryce and
shove his
Aaron.
stupid glasses in his face. Bryce and Aaron freak me out.
They're weird, man.
Weird twins.
They're super fucking weird. Have you ever seen the National?
I have,
Okay.
and I saw him in Dillon this past summer. That's
Oh,
where I
my
got the
parents were
hat
there.
I was gonna give you. For the audience, I meant to bring a hat to give to Julian today. It would have been nice. Yeah, your parents were at the show.
Yeah. Did you
I
say
was
hi to
hanging
him?
out. No, I didn't see him. I would love to see him there. Yeah.
At the show.
At that point, I didn't even know how badly I wanted to be your dad. I didn't know his feelings on Oasis.
Well, now you
If
do.
Oasis would have come up when we were making Small Chat, which it likely would have, because that's how I make Small Chat, I would have been, hey, Mr. Ferrara,
What's your favorite Oasis
do you like
album?
Oasis? But anyways, when I was at the show, I ended up getting very close to Matt and Aaron before the show, because I was kind of standing near the side stage and they came out. I thought about going over and trying to get them to sign something, but then I was worried they would steal my soul.
Yeah,
because
they would have.
Weird twins.
They're pretty weird.
Yeah.
Little freaky boys. So, anyway, I think really we can kind of just touch on the first part of their career.
Yeah.
and then
Which album did you
skip forward?
Oh, okay. Let's touch on the first, and then I'll ask you which album
Okay.
got you in.
I was just gonna say, essentially, they started in 2001. Matt Berninger, Aaron Dessner, Scott Devendorf, Brian Devendorf. They released the self-titled on Brassland, which was an independent label, and that was what rooted them early on as an indie band, because a lot of people these days make the argument that the National's not an indie band because they're one of, they have worked with labels and have been hugely significant to labels and, have worked the industry since they got in, but they definitely came in as a very independent band. They also toured independently. They released a lot of singles independently in between albums, and then they have Sad Songs for Dirty Lovers in 2003, which has Bryce on it, Bryce Dessner, and he's the twin of Aaron Dessner, the freaky guys we were talking about, and
little boys.
those freaky little baby boys.
Keep adding weird adjectives. Those freaky little soft-bottomed, small penis little boys.
Little tiny little pecker boys.
little tiny penises on them, like baby Jesus little boys.
Yeah. Did you think baby Jesus was born with a fat cock?
Oh yeah. He was an absolute tripod.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, people were going by putting cameras on his head
The
all
dick
the time.
was fully grown, and then everything else kind of just came up
caught
around it. Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry for anyone that
It's very
likes
much a
Jesus out
root.
there. Okay, so anyway, really, I think up until 2005, the boys in the National all had other jobs and were working side hustles and shit to make music work, because that's kind of how the DIY scene was too. And then Alligator comes
rehearsed
out
next to Interpol.
Oh, I think I've heard that before, because someone was talking about, one of the Desners was talking about how they used to hear Interpol writing songs, and I would always just think, holy fuck.
I know.
Those guys are so much better than us.
I heard Matt Berninger talk about it, and he's like, we couldn't have thought we were any bigger losers being next to Interpol, because I think they were still kind of getting their sound together, but here was Interpol showing up cool as fuck in their suits.
Yeah,
and they were in khakis.
The Interpol guys, were pretty confident in what their sound was going to be, but I think the National boys kind of had a little bit of a Beatles syndrome, where they were figuring it out as they were going.
Do you like their first album?
I do like it.
You do like
I
it?
think it's charming. That's what I like about it, is that it sounds like a debut release from an indie rock band.
Yeah.
That being said, it's probably my least favorite one, but
yeah, that and Sad Songs for Dirty Lovers are interchangeable as mine.
I think Sad Songs
Cherry
is
Tree.
good. Cherry Tree is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think Cherry Tree has some of their best songs on it, and then Alligator and Boxer, which, again, I think Boxer.
I think
also
Boxer
has some of their
is
best
when
songs.
they hit the peak that they've just been riding since then.
Yeah.
Boxer was the birth of the National that we know today.
Totally. I agree with that for sure. Boxer comes out, and everyone on the critic side of things and people that are in the indie rock scene all flock to that record. They
So
all
were
love
you
it.
in on Boxer yet?
No, so I gotta say, the National didn't come into my universe until 2013.
Probably same for me, brother. Maybe
It's
a year
one,
before.
whenever Trouble Will Find Me came out, 2013. So 2013, Trouble Will Find Me. I'd say basically I heard about them because my dad was obsessed with the song. Fuck, I can't remember what it's called. It's on Trouble Will Find Me. It's not worth it, but so he became obsessed with one of the songs on the record, and then he played it for me, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then I listened to the rest of the record, and I was like, this is interesting. My first opinion of the National was kind of just the dude's voice is not great, and the music's a little bit too sad for me almost.
Which is crazy because you're a sad boy.
And now the reason why I love it is because of how sad it is.
Yeah. Did they make you a sad boy?
No, I
Is the
think
National responsible for this?
no, I think I was already into sad boy shit pretty heavily because of like Radiohead at that point, and I mean, there was like Deftones.
That's real horny
and
sad boy stuff, though. National's less horny sad boy.
Deftones is horny sad. Radiohead
I
is
just- you think-
sad, like manic sad, and then National is very like real world sad, where like a lot of his lyrics are like fake narratives that he's like coming up with, and he's just kind of talking like stream of consciousness almost, and that's what almost got me off guard, was like just his very real approach to singing and almost the way that he's like an anti-frontman.
Yeah.
And then, you know, after like probably 2 or 3 listens, I was like, okay, this is great.
It's cool how much this is so stupid to say, but has come into his own as like a frontman.
Totally.
Because that style he's just maintained, but people love it, and like his awkward demeanor, but also like walking through the stage and stuff.
And like how we were just
People
talking about
go crazy for him.
yeah, how we were just talking about kind of how no one really has the same exact style of like screaming as Aaron Turner. No one really has the same exact style of like sing talking or like a low register, baritone singing that Matt does, and I think that's super cool, very unique. It's definitely can be polarizing, I would say. What album is it the same for you?
I have a very similar experience. My dad got me into the National too. I think he had started listening to High Violet maybe like 2011, 2012. Got really into that because I remember by the time Trouble Will Find Me was out, he was super into it, and I remember hearing High Violet a little bit before then, but it was interesting because like all of his friends, like all my dad's friends, came over and they would talk about like the National and play National albums and stuff. So at first I think I had maybe a similar thing, was like unsure about the National because like all my parents' friends like the National.
They're like a
about
parent.
this.
They're
Yeah.
kind of a parent band.
And they still are very much a parent band, but I think that has grown to become part of their appeal, that it's sophisticated and mature.
Their fans call them like the dad.
Yeah.
The sad dads.
Sad
That's
dads.
what it is,
Yeah. So Trouble Will Find Me was definitely when I hopped fully on board.
And then, not to speak for both of us, but after Trouble Will Find Me, I immediately went back to High Violet and was like, holy fuck, this record's fantastic. And I think in a lot of ways, High Violet might be like my favorite National record.
I think The Boxer is it for me. Only because my dad went back in a similar way that we did after he discovered them. He was like, I want to listen to their previous discography. And I think Boxer was his favorite. It was on such heavy rotation all the time in our house, so listened to a lot of that album.
I think Boxer's probably like the crowd favorite too. Like Fake Empire is always like the #1 crowd pleaser.
Yeah.
And a lot of the songs on there are like National staples now, but
Oh, it's just Boxer. I keep saying that Boxer.
it's just Boxer. You fucking moron.
Dude, do I even like that? I don't even know it's fucking called.
So then they put out Sleep Well Beast in 2017, which I did just want to shout out that record too, because
We've talked about that before on our
this
previous
album,
podcast.
yeah,
How
this
important
album,
it was for both of us,
this album to me
particularly
is,
you.
yeah, this album to me is a foundational record because I'll tell the very condensed version of the story, but I had recently gone through a breakup with my like high school girlfriend who I had been with for a minute, and I basically put this on in the car when I was driving, and all of the lyrics like connected to exactly what my experience at the time was in such a way that I was just like, holy shit, like this guy fucking gets me. Like these songs are like about what I'm going through right now. And that was like a pretty melodramatic like high school, just post high school breakup, so you know I was like pretty sad boy about it, and I definitely like was not a fully formed mature boy like I am now. But at the end of the day, essentially
It's so sick to describe everyone as boys.
at the end of the day, this record really was like a turning point for me in my life, and yeah, I love it. I think for those reasons I would say this might be my favorite one, but for the reasons of just like the things that High Violet did for indie rock and the chances they took on that record, the way it's produced, I would say that one might be their best. But yeah, just Sleep Well Beast is just a fantastic record. I know.
Show the camera your arm.
Oh, I got a little tat right here.
Oh, camera's too hot. All right, sorry everyone.
Powering
Quick
off.
technical.
Hiatus.
Difficulty. We're taking a break.
Pee break.
You can keep talking. I'll use the other camera for this segment.
I am horny. I'm gonna wait to talk about important things until you're back. The camera's too hot, man. What are you doing?
It's because I had it resting on the TV.
Yeah.
This is okay. I'm gonna wait for it to cool down for a second.
Okay.
We'll use that camera.
Okay. Top camera. Up top.
Up top.
I'm gonna tell
Hopefully
you all
that
the
one's
reasons.
not dead.
Let's check on it.
Speaking of, this is an indie podcast.
Yes.
We're very DIY.
Very
yeah,
DIY.
This is a 2000s New York indie podcast.
Aaron Dessner had purchased a plot of land somewhere in New York. I can't remember exactly where. And he built a studio called Long Pond Studios on the plot of land he built, and it's like in the middle of the woods. Long Pond.
Long Pond Studio.
Weird. You're a weird guy.
Yeah,
but
because my nickname was Long Pond Studio. Oh, we're recording on this camera.
Nice. That's a terrible angle. But anyway, yeah, they recorded Sleep Well Beast at Long Pond Studios, and Long Pond has since then gone on to be like an indie icon for like recording and production, because a lot of like very notable people have worked there, from like Bon Iver to Phoebe Bridgers to Sharon Van Etten to
Taylor
Swift has worked there. Yeah, a lot of like pretty crazy big names. So Long Pond, I think, is important to the indie rock scene in the same way that the
Did
National
you listen
is
to
important
that Taylor
the indie rock
Swift album at all? Oh, what the hell, brother? Alright, we're gonna give that another second.
It's
We're
too
good.
hot.
Yeah.
Fucking guy.
Well, maybe if you had a TV that ran a little bit cooler, guy.
This TV
What kind of
is
fucking TV is this?
it's
Burning my
old.
fucking camera
It's
up,
an
huh?
old TV.
Yeah, it's old TV.
It's doing great.
Maybe you should take me up on that monitor.
I fucking bring a monitor over then.
God damn, I'm so pissed, dude, when you end
Alright. The National.
Can we go back to Oasis?
This is unraveling very quickly.
Did you show...
Folklore?
Yeah, did you like the Taylor Swift album? Folklore
No.
and Evermore?
I liked Folklore the most of any Taylor Swift so far,
Mm-hmm.
but I still didn't like it. And you can tell that Aaron Dessner is really clinging to that collaboration, because
Dude,
he's
he
always
was bothering
just
me
like,
so much on him on Instagram.
Dude, he posts like every
Every
3
day was
days,
Taylor
like,
Swift, dude.
Oh, here's a story about me and Taylor Swift working
in case
together.
you forgot, I'm recording an album with Taylor Swift. Okay?
And then they made a documentary.
I'm jealous as hell.
They
Let's
made
be
a little
honest.
documentary and put it on Disney Plus.
Oh, dude. The stupidest streaming service. I'm so pissed.
You know Walt Disney was a Nazi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who else was a Nazi?
Hitler?
Mr. Cherry Coca-Cola.
Putting that down.
He was a propaganda master.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true for sure.
It wasn't Goebbels, it was Mr. Cherry Coca-Cola.
Okay. Does that suffice for your national coverage?
For the national?
Did you want to talk about Sleep Little Beast?
No, I don't need to. I just also liked the album when it came out.
And then there's I Am Easy to Find. And then they have, Aaron Dessner has his side project with Justin Vernon.
Yeah.
The Big Red Machine project.
Matt Berninger did his side. It was like a one-off album.
There was Elvi.
Yeah.
And then Matt Berninger also released that album that he did with, Bootsy Collins or something.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It's called something about serpents.
How do I not know this? That's dope.
It's not that great.
Is Bootsy Collins still alive?
I think so. Oh fuck, that's the wrong.
Matt Corby.
Who the fuck is
Who's
Matt
this
Corby?
joker? Oh, also a singer, it appears.
Not the right.
Maybe we
Not
should
the
have
guy I care
Matt
about.
Corby sewed. Where we learned about
Let's
Matt
see.
Corby.
Let's see. Serpentine Prison.
Serpentine Prison.
Yeah, 2020. And let's see. There should be something about who he worked with on it. He worked with someone really famous, and the guy that he worked with, Booker T. That's who it was.
Booker T.
He worked with Booker T.
I
Yeah,
was-
Bootsy
I was
Collins.
gonna be like, is
probably
it just
long
Bootsy
dead.
Collins slapping the bass?
He wrote all the songs on this album, I think, and did most of the production work. And then Matt just wrote the lyrics and sang. But his wife, Corinne Besser, I think, wrote some of the lyrics too. And yeah, he worked with Phoebe Bridgers a little bit.
I recognize the album. I have listened to Serpentine Prison.
Yeah, and you don't really remember much of it.
I don't remember it. No, I thought
It's not very memorable.
it's not memorable. Matt Bridger should do better. And if you're listening,
Just
bit,
know that you
bit of a
can do
stain
better.
on your legacy.
Just know that you can do better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then, obviously, since we're here, I guess we should talk a little bit about Bon Iver. Because they're from Wisconsin, so not New York, but still very indie. And
I would consider Wisconsin the New York of the Midwest.
wow, that left me literally
That's
speechless.
actually Chicago, not the entire state of Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, Chicago's not even in Wisconsin.
No, I know. I'm saying
Okay.
Chicago.
I just want to
not
make sure
the
that you
entire-
knew.
I was born in Chicago, guy.
You were?
Yeah, you don't know this? I was
No.
born in Naperville, Illinois.
Oh, shit.
Just
No
outside
way.
of Chicago. Mhm.
Crazy. How long did you live there?
I was actually born in Downers Grove. Only the first year of my life.
Okay.
And then my parents moved out here when I was 2 years old.
Do you call your, like, when
1
people
year,
say,
whatever.
like, were you born in Colorado? What do you say?
I always say pretty much I was born in Chicago, but I grew up here.
You're like a Colorado boy.
Yeah, I don't remember Chicago at all.
You, like, live the lifestyle of a Coloradoan.
Yeah, I'm very much a Coloradoan.
Mm-hmm. You mountain bike, you drive a
Mountain bike,
Subaru.
Drive Subaru, I ski. I'm a lesbian.
You are a hardcore lesbian,
I golden retriever growing up.
pushing your homosexual agenda on me all the time.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you're the one who can't stop saying I'm gay.
because I'm gay. What's
So it's working, me pushing my lesbian.
It is working slightly. I do want to fuck girls, but I also want to identify as a girl, so it's confusing. Anyway,
Shave the beard.
we
maybe
got
as
Bon
a
Iver.
start.
You pig.
Yeah, oh god, that was transphobic. I'm sorry. That was actually transphobic, and I
You are a
apologize
piece of
deeply.
shit. Oh man. Well, I don't really want to talk about Bon Iver now.
I don't either. I'm so sick of Bon Iver.
Do you like Bon Iver?
Yes, I do. But
What's been your opinion of his?
I find his recent stuff kind of too pretentious to be listenable. And obviously, For Him I Forever Go, amazing album. And, I respect him immensely as a musician and for what he's done. But yeah, I don't get stoked about new Bon Iver releases. Or
Okay,
anything.
that's fair.
Mhm.
Well, then yeah, there's definitely no real point to talk about Bon Iver.
Last band I want to talk about in this whole indie rock thing, and again, this band is not New York. The Shins. You a Shins guy?
This is so interesting that you're bringing this up right now because me and Robert and Will have been fighting about the Shins lately because, so I have always liked the Shins, kind of. They've never been like the best ever, but I've always liked them a decent bit. And then Will used to like the Shins, and last week we were talking about them for some reason, and Will was kind of like, I kind of just realized that I fucking hate the Shins. They're not that good. And I was like,
That's a
wait,
shame.
really? Like, I like the Shins.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it some more, and I was like, wait, do I really even like the Shins that much? I don't really know if I do. I definitely, I like the Shins, but I don't listen to the Shins ever, and I don't, think to put them on. And sometimes when I hear James Mercer singing, I want to turn it off, because I think it's kind of fucking annoying. So
Interesting.
I'm having a weird time with them right now. Their song 40 Mark Strasse is amazing. But,
Great song.
yeah.
I'm a huge Shins guy.
Okay, talk me through why you love the Shins.
I think it really just comes down to. I mean, at first I just loved how the song sounded, how they made me feel, and they were comforting. I enjoyed listening to it. But then when I started writing music, I started appreciating the Shins for what great songwriters they were and simple songwriters. And I really this sounds crazy, but I think Shoots Too Narrow, Wincing the Night Away, that period of albums, their songwriting prowess is on par with the Beatles in their best day. I know that sounds crazy, but those are such great, complete albums with great songwriting. And does this have studio album? So Oh Inverted World was the first one. Shoots Too Narrow, probably my favorite. Wincing the Night Away, second favorite. And then they did Port of Morrow and Heartworms.
I think Oh Inverted World...
I thought there was more than 5 studio albums, but I guess it makes sense.
They took a hiatus for a bit, didn't they? And Mercer was doing shit by himself for a bit, but I think
they're all
pretty solid.
2001, 2003, 2007, 2012, 2017. So there's a 2-year gap between their first 2 albums, but after that,
5 years.
4 year, and then 5 year, and then 5 year. That's a long time between albums.
And I do think Port of Morrow's pretty good.
Yeah, Port of Morrow's great.
I wasn't a big fan of Heartworms, to be honest.
No, I wasn't either.
That's okay.
Didn't listen to it too much.
But yeah, I think so it's interesting that you put them on par with the Beatles for their songwriting, because their songwriting has always been, to me, very straightforward.
That's me. Okay. I
guess not to say that the Beatles write very complex songs, but
well, later on, I'll alter my statement and say the early Beatles albums, where there were such great simple songs, but catchy and still impressive in their simplicity. How straight to the point it is. How quickly they get across. There's energy to the arrangement. The parts all feel natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Big band for Julia. We listen to it a lot. It's one of her favorite bands, and she's a huge Zach Braff fan, and therefore a huge fan of the movie Garden State. Are you familiar?
Oh yeah.
And that was kind of He broke the Shins.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why.
I forgot about that.
You're a Zach Braff guy? You like Scrubs?
No. Well, I mean, kind of. I like it, but I get annoyed with the shtick very quickly, because it is a very shticky show.
Yeah. Everyone's got show a shtick so much.
Everyone's got
you just push a shtick out that dangles in front of everyone's eyes.
Now you're making it gross.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
You're making it gross, you sick fuck.
Hurtful. Went a bit overboard there, I would even say.
I don't think so. I think I went exactly the right amount of bored.
Okay.
Cool.
Fair enough. No hard feelings.
So I'm gonna get rid of all these.
Yeah, let's get to closing remarks on indie rock.
Okay. Let's go back here to this list. I'm gonna pull it up. Indie rock bands.
Okay.
Let's see if there's any ones that we
Vampire
missed.
Weekend.
Yeah, let's not talk about them.
We've
definitely given them their dues. Arcade Fire.
We mentioned them in the beginning.
They definitely were very important to indie rock, but now Win Butler's a creep, so cancel Arcade Fire.
Killers, I disagree.
Killers.
With them being indie rock.
Yeah, they're definitely a little bit too commercial.
I mean, obviously part of the scene and stuff, but I don't picture them. But that book, Meet Me in the Bathroom, did have a lot on the Killers.
If you're talking about bands that almost immediately went commercial, they're one of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Have you been to the Las Vegas airport? They're literally never not playing Killer songs. If you fly to Vegas, all you will hear is the Killers.
I've never been to Vegas, so I honestly kind of want to keep it that way.
Vegas sucks.
The White Stripes, that's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
They're they're indie in the sense that they're DIY, but they're definitely garage rock.
Yeah,
right?
And they were big along with the Strokes. I remember the Strokes and
the
White Stripes playing together, and it was a big deal, and they collaborated. And there's this awesome YouTube video where Jack White plays on New York City Cops in a live show with them. So they were very much.
Yeah.
I think they kind of leapfrogged each other maybe in popularity around that time. But I think Jack White got a lot more attention for being this like virtuoso and kind of a genius.
People would definitely put them in the garage rock category above indie rock. Radiohead, I disagree with that. I don't think they're indie.
Oh, did you like the Cribs? No, they're great UK bands.
The Cribs, yeah,
Johnny Marr produced them.
They're indie.
Yeah, Cribs are great.
The Kooks, they're a good one.
Kooks are good. Naive. That is such
Wombats,
a fun.
Fuck the Wombats.
Yeah.
And we're starting to get away from it. So I think we mentioned pretty much everyone that's worth it.
Yeah, we got. Modest Mouse I think deserves a mention. Now, they were obviously early in the '90s, but I think
The Lonesome Crowded West.
that came out '90s. Can you pull up their discography real quick? I just want to look at years that albums came out.
I always think that The Lonesome Crowded West is their debut.
Okay, Good News for People Who Love Bad News was 2004.
Yeah. And
so that is right in there, yeah.
Let's, I guess...
And then We Were Dead Before... Oh, it's 2007. Those are both later than I thought.
It's supposed to be... I mean... if we're talking about really important albums to us growing up, I would say Good News for People Who Love Bad News is one for me.
I had, like, half of high school, the only CDs I listened to in my car were Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory, this, and I had Smashing Pumpkins in there, and I had Pearl Jam's 10.
Wow.
Which
you actually born in the wrong generation,
explains, all 90s albums. Well, except for this one, 2007. But I actually think that explains a lot about me, that I listened to those, like, 4 albums so much.
I could definitely tell.
Troubling.
Let's
wrap this up.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Any closing important thoughts?
No. Indie rock, I've always said is my favorite genre. I'm indie till I die.
Yeah.
It's indie. We should do a 90s indie rock. So that'd be great. Pavement, GBV, Silver Jews, all those bands.
I'd have to do some
Did you ever listen to Built to Spill? The original BTS?
I did. Okay, so it's an interesting wormhole that I recently went down watching some Built to Spill live videos from
That's funny, I've
2000s.
recently watched some too.
Something came up on my Instagram that was just like a clip of them on like a late night talk show doing a song, and I was like, holy fuck, these guys are good. The dude, what's the name of the front guy?
Yeah, I'm drawing.
He's cool as fuck.
Fuck. Oh my god, it's on the tip of my tongue. Look it up.
It just never holds my attention for that long, because after that happened, I did want to go listen to Built to Spill, and then I listened to some of it, and it was good, but I just kind of wanted to change it after like a little while.
Doug March, yes, I remember. I was thinking South Park.
Yeah, he looks like shit.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, his voice does not match his face at all.
It's crazy how like delicate his stage presence is, and how just how like refined his playing and his singing is considered.
When you look in his eyes, you just know he would make love to you like a Neanderthal.
Yeah, he looks like. Yeah, he looks not well.
Yeah, he's a great guitar player though too.
All right, well, that was
good. So
long sewed.
Was it long?
I don't know.
Time flies.
What time is it right now? 9 o'clock? Oh, it wasn't that long.
Ooh, a little over an hour maybe.
Alright.
Anyways.
Good sewed.
Good sewed. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you next week.